Welcome to this industry expert breakout room focusing on technology and the technology sector. Today we are speaking with Hashir Quereshi. Hashir graduated from New York City College of Technology with a Bachelor's of Technology in Computer Technology. He is currently a senior software engineer at Bluevine, and we are going to be able to ask some questions. Thank you for being here, Hashir.
Awesome. Any other questions? Yeah, definitely. My major was computer systems technology in New York City College of Technology. I was also actually double majoring as a applied computational physics. Didn't get to finish the second major because I got the gig at Amazon, but always have an interest in physics and astronomy.
Question, what did you use to get your job at Amazon?
Yeah, so basically at that point I was mass applying to jobs, right, as you do when you realize you don't have a job lined up and you're about to graduate soon. It's very stressful, right? Everyone around me was trying to find jobs as well, so I was mass applying, and I honestly didn't care what company I was applying to. As I mentioned, I applied to Adobe, right? Because I didn't let that kind of intimidate me, like, oh, I'm applying to Adobe, I'm applying to Google, I'm not gonna, get these jobs. I didn't think about that. So when I applied at Amazon, the skill sets that they were looking for that position was general knowledge of computer science and general knowledge of computer systems, as well as the capability of diving in. And then also soft skill side in tech, especially, right, is being able to understand when you don't know something, right, versus giving a wrong answer and continuing on a path that you have no idea about, but you're just kind of, bullshitting your way through it. These interviewers, especially at the top companies and even at any company, right, when you're being interviewed, they have a lot of depth. So when they try to ask you questions and they're trying to take you down a path where you don't know, and they're trying to get you to say you don't know. And if you don't say you don't know, that's a big no-no, right? Because it's okay to not know and admit that and try to learn versus continuing to say, random stuff that doesn't make sense at all and is not true, Yeah, there's lots of things that went into getting the job at Amazon. Of course, I can't mention every single thing, but yeah, that was kind of the core of it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. That's a good question. So in my college, I think you might be from the same college. You're asking about concentration. So in my college, the CST degree is broken up into multiple like concentrations, and so you have before you had networking, security, cybersecurity, software development, and other things. And I think they were starting a data science program as well within the CST degree. So it was a massive degree. My focus was in software development. Yeah, it's kind of tough when you don't know what you want to do. And the way that degree, my advice is the way that degree is designed, right, is the associate's path kind of gives you a idea of all of the different concentrations. They will have the introduction courses for all of them. Yeah. They have that, and I would say go to those courses, right? Once you're towards the end of your concentration or the associate path, and it's really time for you to pick a concentration, doing research back on the classes you took, right? The intro classes, try to dive deeper into that industry or that, I guess, sector right, of the concentration. So in networking and security, look at the jobs that are out there, look at the roles that are out there, right? Google has all of this information for you. Look up a day-to-day of the job that interests you, right? The title that interests you. And that can help you narrow things down, because college is completely different than what you do day to day, right? In all of these concentrations. So that is kind of my advice on, if you don't know which concentration you want to go to, right? Just look up the jobs, right? Try to even a broad search of what jobs are there in the tech field, right? Multiple articles will come up, and then from there you can dive deeper. It may open up avenues for you. Okay, in the tech field, there's multiple subfields, right? Okay, then try to search up other ones, the subfields, and then eventually what'll happen is you'll have a list of these roles that will come up. And of course, if you put entry level, which is what I recommend, it's going to narrow that down, right? So you only get entry level positions. And then from there, just look up what they do day to day. It's a process, right? But that's kind of what you have to do to really navigate and understand what each concentration, each job really does, and if it interests you.
Hi, Hashir. Sorry for joining late. I was just curious. I don't. My name is Amna Malik, by the way. Senior Director for Internships and Career Development. Could you speak to a little bit about the actual transition? And if you did already, I apologize. From when you were graduating in that senior year or that final year that you were in, and like how the resources that were available and that weren't available, and how you had to be entrepreneurial to an extent of figuring things out. I think you mentioned Google research and things of that nature, but I think a lot of this is about putting the time and effort in. And I think that sometimes is underestimated, that you have to try a little bit harder sometimes in the beginning, and then things open up.
Yes, definitely. I can talk on that. When I was starting off, I mentioned this in the intro, is hackathons, right? So part of learning about the field, learning about the industry, right, is going to events like hackathons. Even if you're not participating, even if you're not like actively coding anything in hackathons, team members may need someone to let's say, go up there and talk about the product, right? Or whatever it is the teams are building. But overall, I think going to like these activities, right? One, you have to spend the time. They're either weekend, right? Entire weekend, people don't sleep. I wouldn't sleep, right? People, that's how it is. You have to put in that time to really start to network. And I made amazing lifelong friends out of that, right? And also taking their knowledge, what did they know about the roles and about the industry, to learn more, right? Resources at my school, I did have a career center, right? So I went to the career center. Unfortunately, at that time, I don't know how much it has changed. It wasn't very developed. It wasn't like a super focused one on my major. Let's say it was more general, which helped a lot when it first came time to write my resume, right? I had no understanding of how to write a resume. I hadn't really like worked. I was working as a peer mentor, but that was at the college, and they weren't really focused on my resume too much. But when it came time to apply, I had no idea how to build resumes, right? So starting off the base outline, the bare outline, and like just understanding resume building, my career center helped a lot. But I do think a lot of things were lacking when it came to focus on the tech industry, right? I think that really came from networking on my own. Joining hackathons, going to hackathons. What happens at these hackathons, if no one's gone as well, they have lots of sessions where industry experts, including me, come to present, right? They present, they tell you about their day to day. They tell you about the industry.
Does everyone know what a hackathon is? Sorry, because you've mentioned it a few times.
Yeah.
I'm assuming everyone does. Can someone say yes or no?
Yes.
Everyone's good. Okay. Sorry, I wanted to make sure because it's a good idea, a good example. All right.
Yeah. But yeah, I would highly recommend like going to hackathons and just learning, right? And the first couple of hackathons, you're just gonna learn. If you're going alone, it's okay if you're not contributing a lot, right? It's completely fine. You're going there to learn and to see, and there's free food. There was lots of free food and snacks and swag there. Companies, especially if it's a sponsored one, companies will give you swag, right? If you go to their sessions, but use that, right? Use these open resources for yourself. And then eventually a lot of people find it fun, especially if you're going with friends. I would recommend getting a group of friends from college together and just go and attend a hackathon together, right? Make a team, have fun, just stay up all night, code, and you will learn so much, right? You will learn so much from that. It's honestly insane. It could be comparable to like a month's worth of college, right? Just going to hackathon and learning, or just other activities too, meetups as well. Meetups, they're out there. If you go to the meetup app, you need to be careful, of course, but if you go to some of the well-founded meetup groups, they have industry experts that are there talking about their experiences, right, and things like that. So that's great as well. It can help you network.
What about your relationship with your professors? How did that pan out post-graduation? And do you have anything you would look back and say, I wish I had built this relationship, or I wish I had done that?
Yeah, definitely. So my relationship with my professors had been, honestly, without my mentors, without my professors, I would not be where I am, nowhere close, right? I would say it first started, just as an example, my first mentor in college, and I still stay in touch with her even to this day. I send her memes and interact and things like that. But she really brought on this passion to build, right? Because before taking her class, before having her as a mentor, I was in a rut of going to class, coming back, and then doing my homework, and then that's it, right? Just doing assignments, doing exams. You don't learn like that in the tech field. You don't. You have to build, right? Companies will see most of, if not all of my projects before I even got into Amazon was just projects. It was just projects from my mentors, right? Yes, for some of them I got paid for, right? But it's about how you are able to talk about the project as if you worked on it in a company. I was able to talk about these projects like I owned a company and I was building a startup out of each of these products that I built. I knew the inner workings and everything, right? And the way I was able to do that is because I was able to focus on building thanks to these mentors, right? They gave me direction and guidance and they let me be. And I spent a couple of summers and I honestly learned more from these projects than I learned in my entire college career, right? Like
That's a great like point to share, because I think that you have to be open-ended about the experience. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
I can keep going with questions. Yeah, but go ahead, Toma. Yeah, ask questions.
Question, what programming language do you prefer to use?
Good question. Yeah, so to answer it right away, currently I use Python, but I also use JavaScript in client side versus just backend. We'll do Python. For client side, we'll do JavaScript. I do have experience with other languages. My school, unfortunately, taught Java from the beginning, C++ as well. But in the beginning, you can definitely focus on languages, right? And it can be very overwhelming, but my recommendation is just pick one that you enjoy and don't worry about it unless you're learning a domain, right? Like pick a language for client side, which will be JavaScript most likely, and although there's Python as well, but picking JavaScript if you're more focused on front end. Back end wise, pick anything you enjoy, right? Python is simpler, right? So it's easier for beginners to pick up. Just pick one and then go from there. And then eventually you can learn a language easily. It's not that tough.
Okay. Because I'm learning C++ and it's like.
And that's fine. If you want to, pick C++, stick with it and keep going. People usually will not care. Do your research, of course. If the language has a lot of open jobs, if there's companies looking to use the languages, right, then that's probably a language you want to stick with. If not, then it's okay to transition, but still, like, just pick one that you're like, okay, I see a lot of jobs for this, or I see that this is gonna boom, I'm gonna pick this and then I'm gonna stick with it, right? So
Like,
Java, C++, Python, those are safe picks. You can pick either of them. JavaScript, of course, definitely a safe pick. They're not running out anytime soon. So
Hashir, were there any questions, if you could think back when you started out, maybe your first interview, your second, even if it was an internship question that you were like, oh, that got me, or that was tricky, that you would want to prep students here for to think about in advance? Or if you would ask that question now, if you were interviewing any of these students?
are you talking about a particular like question, like a coding question, or just in general, something that
Anything
comes?
that you would ask, let's say you were hiring one of these students, potentially, hopefully one day, what would you ask them? Understanding that they have this background and this interest, just to get them an idea of like, because they're getting their feet wet in this experience.
Yeah. So I don't know if there's a particular question that I would ask, but definitely something, and I mentioned this a little bit around like Amazon as well, right? Something that a lot of people don't focus on is when a candidate brings an ego, right, into the interview and into the experience, right, and how well a candidate works with you. A lot of times what happens, because I have also interviewed many candidates, right, for various positions. A lot of times what happens is the interview setting they feel is ask question, give answer, right? It's not like that. It's usually just, it should be, the way it should be is, it's a conversation, right? You're trying to work with the interviewer to solve a problem, right? Especially in coding interviews, a good interviewer, right, is looking for this. They're looking for how you work with them as if you were part of their team, as if you were a coworker, right? They're going to present a problem to you. They're going to scoot over to your desk. They present this to you and they're trying to work with you to solve it. And a lot of times, especially beginners, right, they don't do that. They don't do that at all. They are stressed because of that, as if this is an exam, right? Interviews are not exams and they shouldn't be. Right. So that caught me off guard in the beginning. In the beginning, I was just like that, where I was in an exam setting. I wasn't talking. I wasn't trying to work with the interview. That's one of the reasons why I failed the Adobe interview as well, is it caught me off guard because they kept bringing me down rabbit holes and I wasn't communicating with them, right? And I just kept trying to solve the question that they were giving to me.
One of the questions in the chat was, so I have to change my resume every time I'm going to apply to a different position. And I would say yes, but I will you have to talk about your experience in that, I guess, if it depends.
Yeah, it depends on if you're changing industries, you have to change your entire resume, right? But for me, because I transitioned while I was in the industry, right, I transitioned to a different job. And this was mentioned in the main panel as well, which was great. I was there for it. Keeping track of everything you do, right? Keeping a log of it is great because one, it'll help you with the promotion process. Trust me, it will. And two, when it comes time to write your resume, you don't have to change your resume usually a lot. The old experience you have still remains. Maybe you might want to tweak some things because you've matured and you learned that, oh, this might not be the best way to word this. Maybe you'll do that, but that's just nitpicking, right? At the end of the day, all you really have to change is adding a new experience and maybe changing your objective because you might not be entry level anymore. You might be senior, right? Maybe changing your skill sets. Always, of course, you have to change your skill sets, right? Because that will show you're learning. If you are writing your resume again and you can't change your skill sets at all, that might not be a great sign for you, right? Because if you've been working at a place for 3-4 years and you have not learned even one more technology or one more thing out there, right? Maybe try to explore a little more, right? It's not too late, of course, right? You can learn on your own, but maybe try to learn new skills. It's not gonna show on the recruiter or when you're applying for a job, but it's just for you, right? It's personal growth. You should always be growing your skill sets.